In the waning light of dusk, Innsmouth rested uneasily against the craggy New England coastline, its silhouette a haphazard collection of weathered rooftops and leaning structures. The sea, a vast expanse of churning indigo, hugged the town as if claiming it for its own. Amid this, the fog began its silent conquest, creeping in with a persistence that spoke of ancient rites and forgotten pacts. It swirled around the docks, where boats bobbed like specters in the gloom, their masts piercing the mist like fingers clutching at the sky. "You see that?" Eli, a burly fisherman with salt-encrusted whiskers, nodded towards the advancing fog as he secured his vessel. His voice carried a mixture of reverence and fear, a tone not uncommon among the townsfolk when they spoke of the sea and its caprices. "Ain't natural, that. Comes like a thief, but what it means to steal, I wonder." Mara, a young woman whose fascination with Innsmouth's lore had brought her to this remote enclave, stood beside him on the dock. Her eyes, bright with curiosity and the thrill of the unknown, scanned the advancing mist. "Maybe it's just the sea breathing," she suggested, half joking, her voice carrying a lightness that contrasted sharply with the heavy air of foreboding. "Or maybe it's coming for something the town forgot it owed." As night fell and the last embers of daylight vanished, the fog embraced Innsmouth entirely, blanketing the town in a thick, impenetrable shroud. Within this cocoon of mist, the world transformed. Sounds became muffled, distances grew uncertain, and the familiar became alien. It was as if the town itself had drifted into some liminal space between the sea and the land, belonging fully to neither. In the heart of this obscurity, Eli and Mara made their way through the dimly lit streets, the fog making their lanterns appear as lone beacons in a world swallowed by shadow. Their steps echoed on the cobblestone, a reminder that in this veiled realm, they were not alone. As the sun's first rays attempted to pierce the dense fog that had claimed Innsmouth, they found themselves thwarted, swallowed whole by the thick, gray blanket that refused to recede with the dawn. The town awoke to a muted world, where colors seemed drained of their vibrance and distances stretched out into infinity. Eli and Mara, having spent a restless night listening to the strange whispers of the fog, ventured out to find Innsmouth transformed into a landscape of shadows and half-seen shapes. Walking through the streets, they noticed the eerie silence that had settled over the town. The usual morning chatter, the clanking of opening shops, even the seabirds' cries were conspicuously absent, as if the fog had absorbed every sound but their own footsteps. "Feels like we're walking in a dream," Mara whispered, her voice carrying a tinge of awe and unease. "Or a nightmare." Eli added grimly, his eyes scanning the obscured horizon where the sea should be. Their journey took a turn when they stumbled upon a series of peculiar marks, etched into the dew-soaked earth, leading from the direction of the beach towards the heart of the town. The tracks were unlike any animal prints. They were deliberate, patterned in a manner that suggested intelligence. "What sort of creature makes these?" Mara mused aloud, her fingers tracing the outlines of the largest imprint, its edges sharp and defined against the soft earth. Their investigation was interrupted by a harrowing scream that sliced through the fog, sending a shiver down their spines. Rushing towards the source, they found Mrs. Calloway, an elderly town resident, standing at her doorstep, white as the mist itself. Between gasps, she recounted seeing a shadowy figure moving through her garden, silent as the fog, but with an unmistakable presence. "It was searching for something," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Determined to uncover the truth, Eli and Mara decided to visit the town's lighthouse, a solitary sentinel at the edge of Innsmouth. They reasoned that from its heights they might pierce the fog's secrets. The lighthouse keeper, an ancient man named Harrow, greeted them with a knowing look. "You seek answers in the fog," he said, not a question, but a statement. "But are you prepared for the truths it conceals?" The climb to the top was arduous, the spiral staircase winding up into darkness. At the summit, they found themselves above the fog, the town below obscured by the dense shroud. But it was the sight beyond the coast that arrested their gaze, a series of inexplicable lights, dancing beneath the waves, beckoning from the depths. "There's something down there," Mara breathed, her voice a mix of fear and fascination. "Something alive, Eli nodded, his face set in determination. And it's coming ashore. On the fourth night, as a moonless darkness embraced Innsmouth, the fog grew denser, almost purposeful in its encroachment. The town, now eerily silent, awaited what was to come with a collective dread. Eli and Mara, having convinced a few brave souls to stand watch, found themselves at the heart of Innsmouth, lanterns flickering like the last whispers of hope against the overwhelming gloom. Suddenly, a chilling howl shattered the silence, a sound neither human nor animal, emanating from the very depths of the fog. It was answered by others, creating a cacophony of nightmares that seemed to close in from all directions. "They're here," Eli muttered, his voice barely hiding his fear. The group tightened their circle, their eyes straining to see through the impenetrable mist. Without warning, shadows detached themselves from the fog, forms both grotesque and fluid, their bodies shimmering with a phosphorescent glow. The creatures moved with terrifying agility, their eyes glowing with a malevolent intelligence. The townsfolk's defenses crumbled as panic set in, the eerie invaders cutting through their ranks with ease. Mara grabbed Eli's arm, pulling him away as they fled into the labyrinthine streets of Innsmouth, the screams of their companions fading into the fog behind them. The chase was a blur of fear and desperation, Eli and Mara dodging through narrow alleys, over fences, and through abandoned houses, the creatures always just a breath behind. At one point, as they hid in the shadowy recess of an old warehouse, they could hear the slithering movements and guttural murmurs of their pursuers outside, the sound of their searching, a relentless reminder of the terror that stalked them. In a moment of respite, hidden in the dark underbelly of Innsmouth, Mara whispered, "We need to get to the lighthouse. It's the only place left." Eli nodded, understanding the unspoken hope that perhaps, within its walls, they might find a means to turn the tide. They ventured out once more, their path a desperate sprint under the cover of fog, every shadow a potential harbinger of doom. Their arrival at the lighthouse was a moment of grim relief. The door slammed shut behind them, the lock turned with a finality that felt both protective and prison-like. They ascended the staircase, the beacon at the top, their goal, even as the sounds of their pursuers echoed against the stone walls below. Reaching the top, they barricaded the door, the light from the lighthouse offering a frail shield against the darkness outside. As the creatures began to assault the entrance, Eli and Mara looked out over the besieged town, their breaths shallow, their fate hanging in the balance within the besieged tower. In the heart of the lighthouse, amidst the chaos of the night, Eli and Mara discovered an ancient relic hidden within a crevice in the wall. It pulsed with a light of its own, resonating with the same eerie luminescence as the creatures besieging them. This must be what they're after," Mara gasped, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the object's smooth surface. Eli nodded, his eyes reflecting the relic's glow, a mix of fear and determination etched into his features. "Then we give it back," he said, his voice firm despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. As dawn threatened to break, the assault on the lighthouse intensified, the creature's desperation palpable in every thud against the barricaded door. Eli and Mara, clutching the relic, made their way to the beacon's balcony, the highest point above the swirling fog and darkness. Below, Innsmouth lay silent, a town under siege by nightmares from the deep. With a deep breath, Mara held the relic aloft, its light casting a beacon across the dark waves. The effect was instantaneous. The creatures ceased their attack, their howls quieting as they turned their gaze towards the pulsating glow. A moment of tense silence hung in the air, broken only by the crashing of the waves against the shore. Then, as if in understanding, the creatures retreated into the fog, their forms dissolving into the mist as they made their way back to the sea. The fog itself began to thin, revealing the first light of dawn and the battered, but still standing, town of Innsmouth. Eli and Mara watched in disbelief as the sea calmed, the creatures disappearing into the depths with the relic, their debt to the town seemingly repaid. Exhausted but alive, the pair descended the lighthouse, stepping out into a world transformed. The sun rose fully, dispelling the last of the fog, and with it, the palpable sense of dread that had enveloped the town. Innsmouth was quiet, the events of the night almost unbelievable in the light of day. "Did that really just happen?" Mara asked, her voice a whisper in the new dawn. "It did," Eli replied, looking out at the sea, now peaceful. "But I doubt it's the end." As the town slowly awakened, its people emerging from hiding to witness the aftermath of the night's terror, Eli and Mara knew that Innsmouth would never be the same. They had faced the creatures from the deep and survived, but the knowledge of what lay beyond the fog would haunt them forever. "We need to be ready," Eli said, a new resolve in his voice. "For if they ever return, we'll need more than luck to save us." Mara nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon, where sea met sky in a line of uncertain calm. Innsmouth had survived, but the mystery of the deep remained, as unfathomable as ever. In the aftermath of that harrowing night, Innsmouth lay draped in a silence more profound than the fog that had preceded the terror. The sun's rays, now unfettered by mist, illuminated streets that bore the scars of the previous night's siege. Buildings stood wounded, their facades marred by the creatures' ferocious attempts to reclaim what was once theirs. Eli and Mara, their faces etched with fatigue and relief, walked through the town, their steps echoing in the quiet, a testament to their ordeal. "I never want to experience a night like that again," Mara said, her voice low, almost lost amidst the soft sounds of the recovering town. "But at least we know now. We know what lurks beyond the fog." Eli nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon where the sea met the sky in a deceptive calm. "Yes, and knowing means we can prepare. We'll fortify Innsmouth, not just against storms, but against nightmares from the depths." As they spoke, a cold breeze swept through the town, carrying with it a whisper from the sea, a murmur of waves that spoke of unquiet depths and mysteries yet unsolved. For a moment, Mara thought she saw a flicker of movement in the water, a shadow beneath the waves that vanished as quickly as it appeared. She shivered, a chill running down her spine. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked, her gaze locked on the distant waters. Eli considered, his face set in determination. "If they do, we'll be ready. Innsmouth has stood for centuries, and it'll stand for many more. Whatever comes out of the fog, we'll face it together." Their resolve was a beacon, a light of defiance against the darkness lurking beneath the waves, a promise of vigilance for whatever mysteries the sea might yet unveil.